Building Biodiversity for a Productive, Resilient Farm, Our First Year, by MaryEllen Patitucci Pitts, in partial fulfillment of the Masters in Sustainable Food Systems program at Prescott College. When my husband and I began farming on a small urban acreage in Indianapolis, I was in the middle of coursework that was opening my mind to new possibilities in farming. I was learning that soil microbes can help feed plants and protect crops from diseases and pests. A suite of insects would not only pollinate our crops like this moth, but others, like the ladybug shown, would prey on crop pests. Small livestock such as chickens could provide fertility, eat weeds and invasives, and provide more food to sell. Collaborating with the ecology that sustains human life on Earth could help us create a productive and resilient farm. This was farming with biodiversity, the kind of farming we wanted to do. Learning that nature had plenty of willing partners got us excited. We moved into our farmhouse with 2 acres in June, so the first summer we focused on soil, the foundation of our farm. In July, we cut a 1/4 acre of sod and broad-forked our heavy Indiana clay soil. I had learned that cover crops and organic matter amendments would start us on the road to healthy, richer soil, so we broadcasted sorghum sudan grass and cowpeas onto the 1/4 acre of dead grass. Over the seeds, we spread a couple of inches of compost mix made of leaf compost, free rabbit manure from a regional source, and purchased compost. This is a close-up of our newly sprouted cover crop, with cowpeas in the foreground. In addition to fixing nitrogen in the soil for future crops, cowpeas have extrafloral nectaries, glands separate from the flower, that produce nectar. Scientists hypothesize that extrafloral nectaries attract insects that defend plants from pests. More help from nature. Cowpeas also attract different soil microbes than the sorghum sudan grass, and later in the season provide a delicious edible crop. The cover crop roots began breaking up compaction and stimulating soil life in our field. These microbes protect soil structure and consequently plant health. We wanted to maximize the root production and soil benefits that first year, so we followed the advice in our SARE cover crops book. We chopped the sorghum sudan grass 6 weeks after planting, when it was about 3 to 4 feet tall. This would increase the root mass 5 to 8 times compared with unmowed stalks. The tops regrew, and tillering added 4 to 6 new, thicker stalks per plant, multiplying root benefits. Our cover crops were a simple step to begin creating a healthier and more productive farm. They created environments where nature would enhance fertility and stability in our growing field. I hope you are beginning to see the symbiosis that unfolds with biodiversity. Over the winter, we incorporated what we were learning about ecology into our farm planning. We wanted to encourage the many benefits of biodiversity: increased nutrient availability, pest and disease regulation, pollination, water storage and filtration, topsoil formation, climate regulation, and carbon sequestration. Our first growing season focus would be to continue increasing soil health and attracting beneficials through a biodiverse landscape. In March, while the spinach, lettuce, carrots, and snap peas were germinating indoors, I flail mowed the winter-killed sorghum sudan grass and cowpeas. Leaving the pulverized biomass on the field would add organic matter to the soil and feed the microbes. In April, we added over 60 trees and shrubs to the tree lines on the south and west edges of our lot. Availability and budget determined our choices to a certain degree, but we chose mostly natives, medicinal, fruit or nut producing, and beneficial attracting tree and shrub species. The diversity will provide additional marketable crops, a more robust farm ecology, and richer soil. The old canopy trees on our farm have been doing vital work for many years. They restore soil biological activity and support bees, and our oaks provide food for caterpillars, the backbone of a stable food web that includes songbirds and birds of prey that keep pest populations in check. We planted serviceberry and redbud trees to provide bird habitat and support pollinators, bees, beetles, butterflies, moths, flies, and wasps that nurture and protect our agricultural landscape. The cedars will act as soil guardians, preventing erosion on our land. As they grow, they and all of our trees will help infiltrate water from spring rains. They will also be effective windbreaks on the west side of our farm. We planted woody shrubs as a hedgerow to attract beneficial insects and provide bird habitat, crop diversity, and butterfly food. Elderberry shrubs provide supplemental food for the beneficials through extrafloral nectaries. Hazelnuts and elderberries will help diversify our farm enterprise as these shrubs mature and bear more fully. We are also exploring avenues for selling witch hazel and other medicinal herbs to local herbalists or creating value-added products on our farm. Hedgerow perennial crops such as these decrease our spring planting labor. At the end of April, we seeded a cover crop mix in the fallow portion of the quarter acre. It consisted of oats, annual rye, buckwheat, red clover, millet, cowpeas, barley, and sunflower. The diverse cover crop offered the probability that some species would flourish and an opportunity to observe which would grow well and where. By June, buckwheat dominated and is featured in this photo. Other species flourished to a lesser degree. This planting was another opportunity to put roots in the soil, add organic matter, stimulate helpful soil microbes, crowd out weeds, and attract pollinators and beneficial insects for our first season of crops. In May, we direct seeded a 75-foot bed with cosmos, phacelia, dill, parsley, and cilantro. It attracted beneficial insects for the crop beds, provided herbs for our kitchen and to sell at our farm stand, and created a beautiful island of color in the field. This bed vibrated with bees, butterflies, and praying mantises, and our most delicious volunteer cherry tomatoes grew in amongst the herbs and flowers. Beneficial beds can also be planted specifically to attract beetles that eat pests and weed seeds. These beetle banks are typically long, elevated berms positioned in the middle of crop fields, planted with native perennial bunch grasses to provide winter cover for the beetles and encourage rapid beetle movement into crop fields when temperatures warm up. We planted this one in our second season. In Indiana, switchgrass, big bluestem, little bluestem, Indian grass, and prairie dropseed are good choices. Native wildflowers can be interplanted as well. In May, we also experimented with in-field crop biodiversity, planting radishes around zucchini mounds, direct seeding onions into established beet beds, direct seeding carrots into established onion beds, and planting alyssum and red clover seed beneath our tomatoes. We observed lower weed pressure and improved soil texture in the interplanted root vegetable beds. Carrots seeded into onion beds also grew longer than those in a monocrop bed. Radishes around zucchini mounds likely repelled squash bugs and aphids, as we saw no evidence of these pests. They also used space efficiently since radishes were harvested before zucchini plants filled out the space. Alyssum and red clover didn't germinate well enough the first year to determine if they benefit tomatoes, but in year 2, alyssum planted beneath tomatoes and tomatillos attracted braconid wasps that prevented damage from the tomato hornworm. We observed that plants could work together to both attract helpful organisms and repel harmful ones. Our goal is to create a field environment where the ecology is rich enough to promote plant health and productivity. In mid-September, we planted another mix of cover crop seed to further improve our soil and prevent erosion over the winter. We chose winter wheat because its root system would improve our topsoil and encourage helpful soil microbes. Oats and crimson clover would provide soil-building roots and hold nitrogen for spring crops. Daikon radish breaks through clay and builds organic matter. In Indiana, these crops require no management in the spring. In October 2021, we picked up our first ever small livestock, chickens. Before they even moved outside, they began helping. Their manure, mixed with pine shavings, got dumped onto the cover crops for infield composting. Currently, they live in a coop and run adjacent to the growing field. In the near future, a mobile pen called a chicken tractor will keep them safe as we rotate them through our fields to do their chicken work, depositing manure, foraging for insect pests and weed seeds, and processing compost with their scratching. In addition to their feed, they enjoy eating surplus scallions and carrot tops from the growing beds, daikon radish leaves and winter wheat cover crops, and items from our kitchen compost. Next spring, they will begin laying. In our first year, we planted more green onions than we could sell, give away, or eat. In September and October, however, we observed that where carrots and green onions were still in the ground, earthworms were plentiful and the soil texture was improved. And when we seeded greens in the onion bed the next spring, the soil was even more enriched. This was an unexpected benefit. From mid-November to the end of December, we collected all the leaves from our 2 acres and used them on our fields for fertility. We also dumped our composter contents, chicken bedding shavings, and manure on top of already frozen cover crops. These on-farm amendments increase the organic matter in the soil and thus create an environment for soil microorganisms and fungal networks to benefit next season's crops. Our daikon radish cover crops were still growing in December. You can see here how they break through Indiana clay. They are nature's tillers that build organic matter and improve water infiltration. The handful of practices we implemented to protect and promote biodiversity on our farm the first year are just the beginning of partnering with ecological processes. The possibilities and opportunities for collaboration with nature's complex web of vitality are exciting and extensive. Ultimately, we want our farm system to feed and protect itself. Rich biodiversity fosters this kind of regeneration. We will continue to incorporate research and traditional knowledge into our practices so we can weather climate, disease, and pest pressure and grow a productive business. My research includes learning what practices farmers are already implementing and asking what support is needed to collaboratively increase agricultural biodiversity. If you are a farmer or a gardener, I'd like to hear from you. What biodiversity supporting practices are you already implementing? What might you be willing to try? Please take about 5 minutes to fill out a short survey at the link shown here. As a farmer or gardener, your responses will help inform how to support on-farm biodiversity in Indiana and the Midwest. This research is being shared across multiple sustainable agriculture supporting platforms in order to collect hundreds of responses from small farmers in the Midwest. Aside from your time, there are no costs for taking part in the survey and no monetary compensation for participating. Responses will be confidential. When you click into the survey, you are giving consent to participating in this study. You may withdraw consent at any time by leaving the survey incomplete. Any questions or concerns about the survey can be addressed to MaryEllen Pitts at maryellen.pitts@student.prescott.edu. Thanks so much for listening to how we have begun to incorporate biodiversity on our farm and for filling out the survey. Here are some of my favorite resources. They are a great way to start building a robust farm ecology. I wish you all the best as you begin your own journey of building biodiversity on your farm.